أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته المنتجبين. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله، صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة ويا عبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة، يا مظلوم يا غريب يا شهيد كربلاء. يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قالوا يا أبانا إنا ذهبنا نستبق وتركنا يوسف عند متاعنا فأكله الذئب وما أنت بمؤمن لنا ولو كنا صادقين. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. A second for the love of Imams Al-Hassan wal-Hussein. A third salawat with your loudest voices for the love of Fatima al-Zahra. The world of sports is one of the most intriguing forms of exercise and entertainment. Sports are enjoyable for people of all ages, children, youth, adults, even the elderly. Sports help people remain fit, in shape, and have a healthy life. It's a major source of entertainment. Sports are watched by millions of people across the world annually, and on some occasions, some sports events are watched by hundreds of millions of people around the globe. The world of sports is a multi-million-dollar industry. It's a major part of the economy. In most countries, the world of sports helps the economy run. It can be a hobby for some people. they enjoy sports on the weekend, or they go for a jog every day, or they go and exercise at the gym every couple of days. For others, it's a job and a means of income. They play sports as a job. They make money off of it. And for others, it could be an obsession. Watching sports, playing sports, tweeting about sports, following up with sports events. It becomes an obsession, and they spend their entire hours worrying about sports. For some youth and for some parents, sports and exercise is the best way to keep their children and to keep themselves away from drugs and the usage of drugs. For others, sports is a way of drawing people towards drugs and the usage of drugs, as we shall examine and see. For some youth, they are obsessed with athletes, and their major role models in life are athletes. They're obsessed with their pictures, their posters, with their jerseys, with their hairstyles, with the way they dress, all because of a certain athlete dresses that way. Tonight, my dear brothers and sisters, we'd like to examine the subject of the world of sports, the history of sports, the pros and cons of sports. There are good things about sports and there are bad things about sports. What are the good things that we may learn from the world of sports? And what are the bad things that we should leave and abandon and ignore about sports? And ultimately, what does Islam say about sports and exercise? وصلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Historians tell us that artifacts and structures suggest that in China, the people of China, the Chinese, engaged in sporting activities as early as 2000 BC. That is about 4,000 years ago. The people of China were already engaged in sports. And one of the popular sports from back then that was popular in China was gymnastics. In Egypt, historians tell us that from the day of the pharaohs, sports were very popular. Monuments to pharaohs indicate that a number of sports were well developed thousands of years ago in Egypt, namely wrestling and high jumping. This was a popular sport in Egypt. In ancient Persia, there were lots of sports that were played, namely martial arts and polo. There are some that say martial arts dates back to Persia, not the Oriental Southeast, not Asia. In Greece, the world of sports was extremely popular. A wide range of sports were played in Greece, in ancient Greece, to the point sports were so popular in Greece to the point that they are the founders of what? The Olympic Games. Every 4 years, they chose a city called Olympia, which is a very small village in the Peloponnesus, and they would have the Olympic Games every 4 years in that small village in Greece. From that area, they began building colosseums. Greece, in Rome. Today, when you go to Rome and Italy, you find the major colosseum, that famous, popular colosseum in Rome. On top of that, in these neighboring countries, they would buy slaves. They would import slaves, bring them home, and make them into gladiators. Put them in these colosseums and make them fight each other for fun. People would engage. People would come and watch these fights. And this was known as spectator sport, as we'll talk about in a couple of minutes. people would enjoy watching gladiators kill themselves. This was a form of sport, spectator sport. Now, these are ancient times. Sports developed. The world of sports developed from ancient times till now. It became more organized, regulated. Today, sports have strict rules. If during ancient times people played freely without laws and rules, today sports have strict rules. There's stadiums, there's uniforms and jerseys. It's become organized sports. And with the advent of mass media and global communication, with the help of mass media, people from across the globe can engage in watching sports. They have the leisure of enjoying sports and watching. If an event is taking place in one country, people all across the globe can enjoy it and tune in and watch. Professionalism entered the world of sports. Today, there's professional leagues. There's this professional league on football. You have the World Cup. You have the NFL, the National Football League. You have the NBA, the National Basketball Association. You have a professional basketball league. You have a professional hockey league, and so on and so forth. Everything became professional. There's professional teams. They make a lot of money. And there's professional athletes. They live off of playing sports. They have no other job than to play sports, and they make millions of dollars. And now they've become celebrities, people that youth look up to and learn from, and they follow up on. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. There's sports that people engage in. There's exercises that people play and engage in. And there's spectator sports, where people sit and watch. Whether it's an amateur game, a local game in their city, or a professional game. Spectator sports became something very popular. Spectator sports can be extremely costly. Either to attend a game, some tickets are extremely valuable and costly, or to order them on your television set. It could be extremely costly. There are many youth that spend lots of money just to watch certain games or attend certain games. It's the same youth that complain about not having money to get married, not having enough money for a wedding. These same youth are willing to blow thousands of dollars to attend certain games or to watch certain games on TV. The World Cup, according to statistics, attracts a global TV audience of hundreds of millions. In 2006, the final game in the World Cup attracted 700 million viewers. In 2011, the Cricket World Cup in India attracted 135 million viewers. This year in the summer, there was the World Cup of 2014. Millions of people were watching the games. And what's interesting is that the World Cup coincided with what? With the holy month of Ramadan. Many people across the world, in the United States, in Canada, in Europe, were complaining, the organizers of majalis and centers and mosques, they were complaining that there's not enough youth attending. Why? Because they were sitting at home watching the World Cup. In the United States of America, the Super Bowl, the famous final NFL championship game, is one of the most watched TV broadcasts of the year. Super Bowl Sunday is famous in the United States of America. Viewership for the Super Bowl is so great that in 2007, according to studies, in 2007, advertising space on TV was sold for $2.6 million for 30 seconds. If you wanted to have an ad for 30 seconds, just 30 seconds, it would cost you $2.6 million. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now, when it comes to sports, we see that men and women have various tendencies. Men find sports a lot more appealing than women. This is no secret. Everyone knows that men find sports more appealing than women. As little children, when girls would play with dolls, little boys would be playing with, they would play catch, they would play football or basketball. They would be running outside, they would be not sitting still inside. When they're young adults, when they're youth and young adults, young men would be playing football or soccer or basketball outside, while young women, young ladies would sit at home, sit together and talk about something or gossip or I don't know what it is. When they're adults, adult men prefer watching games. They would prefer to watch a game while women would prefer to watch a romantic movie. Why is this? Why is it that men find sports more appealing than women? What's the reason? You see, this goes back to their psychology. This goes back to the psychology of men and women. Men are more aggressive. They have a tendency to fight. If an argument breaks out, if they need to prove their point, they don't mind in getting engaged in physical action, in physical fights, fist fights. Men have a tendency to watch action movies. Why? It goes back to their nature of being more aggressive than women. When we see women are less aggressive than men. They're more emotional. They don't need to fight. They might have to argue, but it doesn't necessarily need to be physical. Women are more diplomatic. In order to make their point across, they will use diplomacy. They will use words, not fistfights. Why is the reason? Why is it that men are more aggressive than women? Why is it that men find sports and action movies and basketball games and the World Cup more appealing than women? Well, if you ask evolutionists, they will tell you it's because the early days when human beings were created, or the early days of human beings, Homo sapiens, they were hunters and gatherers. They would hunt. They would have to hunt for animals. Some of these animals might have been wild. In order to bring food home, they might have to fight with other men. They would have to fight with other beasts and animals in order to bring food home. Thus, men are inclined to be more aggressive, more violent, more athletic. Men are more inclined to find anything that deals with exercise and sports more appealing. While women didn't need to hunt, they didn't need to fight, they didn't need to go and fight beasts and animals. Rather, they sat at home and they nurtured their children. They took care of their children. Thus, men needed to be equipped with certain emotions, and women needed to be equipped with other emotions. This is evolution. If you ask an evolutionist, this is how they'd answer. However, we could say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave certain emotions to men and gave other emotions to women. He gave the necessary emotions to men. Because men have to be breadwinners, they have to work hard, they have to go outside of the house, sometimes they have to use their hands, they have to be aggressive, they have to be more athletic. That is why they find sports and exercise more appealing. While women, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them the emotion of taking care of their children. because they need to take care of their children, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put certain emotions in them. He made them more emotional, more compassionate, more loving, more nurturing towards their children. That is why they might not find sports, action movies as appealing. Having said that, there is a great deal of women that also find sports appealing. There's a great deal of women that also like sports. There's a great deal of female athletes and participate in games and championships and the Olympics. There's a great deal of females that participate. Females also enjoy spectator sports. They also go to the gym. They also exercise. And there are a lot of females that are athletes as well. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. When we study the world of sports, we see a very prominent element in sports, and that is the element of competition. In sports, there's competition. Either competition between one individual and another, or a competition between a team versus another team, or between a country and another country. This element of competition is very appealing for those who engage in sports and participate in sports, or for those who view sports and those who engage in spectator sports. This element of competition draws those who engage in sports or those who watch to wish to win. If you're engaged in sports, you want to win. If you're watching, you want your favorite team to win. You want your favorite country to win. This element of competition, it motivates. It motivates those who engage in sports to try to win, to make their best to win, because there's a competition. And competition motivates you to win, to make the best of it. Now, this element of competition, it also teaches youth. It also teaches spectators. It also teaches sports lovers about an important element of life. That in life, there's also competition. It's not just sports that has competition. Life is full of competition. When you're young, when you're in school, you compete for the best grades. When you graduate, you compete for the best jobs. After you graduate, you compete for the best. After you get a job, you compete for the best spouses. Siblings compete with one another for the satisfaction of their parents. Who can obey their parents the most? There's a form of competition. At work, employees or co-workers, they compete with one another to who can satisfy the boss, who can satisfy the company, and who can make the most amount of money. This is a healthy kind of competition. There are those who compete in religious matters as well. Those who can perform the best amount of deeds and the most amount of deeds. Who can perform the ziyarah the most, or go to Hajj the most, or pray the most. Who can donate to the Islamic Center the most. There's a form of competition. And the Quran encourages this form of competition. The Quran says this form of competition is healthy. وَفِي ذَلِكَ فَلْيَتَنَافَسِ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ and let the competitors compete. This is a healthy form of competition. However, there are some people that get carried away with competition, especially in sports. There are those, when they compete, they have to win, no matter what. In every game, they have to win. Their team has to win. If they don't win, or their team doesn't win, the world will go upside down. This is called poor sportsmanship. This is called being a poor sport. I'm sure you've seen that during the World Cup, when one country loses, especially when it reaches the end, which is the finale, when one country loses, what happens in that country? In some countries, of course, not all countries. People in that country, they go out They start breaking cars, windows, they vandalize, they go crazy. Why? Because their team lost. This is called being a poor sport. This is called not knowing how to deal with competition. In some countries, they riot, they vandalize, they trash their country, they trash their city. In the UK, in the United Kingdom, there's something called hooligans. They go out, they drink, they sing like crazy. I remember once, I was in London when two famous teams played, Manchester United and Liverpool in London, and I was taking the metro. And that was the worst day of my life that day, because it was full of drunk people. They were singing in the metro, and if you don't sing with them, they might even beat you up. I was tempted. I don't know, should I sing with them? Should I not sing with them? It was a very bad experience. That entire day, people in London, close to the Wembley Stadium, they were drunk, they were singing, and after the game, I don't remember who won and who lost, but I remember people were trashing, they were breaking into cars, they were vandalizing. Why? Because their team lost. This is called being a poor sport. They have to win. Their team has to win, no matter what. And there are some people, not just in sports, but even in life, they have this mentality that I must win. It's all about winning. For them, it's all about winning. While in sports, we learn that it doesn't matter who wins. It doesn't matter who wins. What matters is how you played, not who wins. You could win, you could lose. But what's nice is how you played. Did you play nice or not? Life is the same, my dear brothers and sisters. There are some that have to get the best job, and have to get the best education, and have to have the best spouse, and the best home, and the best car. And it's as if they're in competition with their brothers, with their neighbors. If their neighbor bought a Mercedes-Benz, they also have to buy a Mercedes-Benz. A better one, a nicer one, a more expensive one. It's as if everything becomes a competition. This is not healthy. This is not a healthy kind of competition. A healthy kind of competition is that you strive your best in a healthy way. But when you pass the limits, when you can't sleep at night because you're in a competition with your neighbor, with your friend, with your coworker, this is not healthy competition. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. One important element of sports is fair play. That in any game, in any sport, there has to be an element of fair play. What does fair play mean? It means that both teams have an equal opportunity to win. They have an equal opportunity to win. Whether it's two teams, like in football or soccer, or two individuals, like in boxing. They both have an equal opportunity to win. If a game doesn't have fair play, it's not a real game. This is not sports. Thus, youth who engage in sports, they learn to have fair play in games and in sports. And this also teaches them something important about life. That in life, there should also be fair play. Just like in sports, when two teams have an equal opportunity of winning, a team can play in another country and still have the chance of winning. And a team that plays in its own country can lose. Just like we saw this year in the World Cup when Brazil lost in Brazil. And I know I don't want to remind you of the very, very sad loss that Brazil had to endure this year, but to make a point that they lost in their own country. This shows you that in sports, it's an equal opportunity, 50-50. You could win, you could lose, even in your own country. This gives us a bigger meaning. This also teaches us about life, that in life, everyone has an opportunity to win. Everyone has an opportunity to receive Allah's satisfaction. No matter where you come from, which country you come from, what language you speak. Are you a Sayyid or you're not a Sayyid? Are you one of the descendants of Rasulullah or you're not a descendant of Rasulullah? You always have the opportunity to enter heaven and to enter paradise. Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam was quoted a very beautiful quote. He says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ خَلَقَ الْجَنَّةَ لِمَنْ أَطَاعَهُ وَلَوْ كَانَ عَبْدًا حَبَشِيًّا وَخَلَقَ النَّارَ لِمَنْ عَصَاهُ وَلَوْ كَانَ سَيِّدًا قُرَشِيًّا. Allah Azza wa Jal has created paradise for anyone who achieves. As long as you work and you achieve and you make an effort to gain Allah's satisfaction, you have the chance to enter paradise even if you're a black man from Ethiopia or a black man from Africa. Of course, Imam Zayn al-Abidin is not being racist, but he was trying to make a point to the Arab who were racist. The Arab were racist. Most of their slaves were black. He was trying to tell them that these black slaves that you own, and you make them work, this black slave has a chance of entering paradise because of his actions. And you, who might be from Quraysh, you're so proud of your blood and your tribe and your family. If you don't work, if you don't achieve, you'll enter hell. Imam Zayn al-Abidin was making a beautiful example that your slave has the chance to enter paradise, but you will enter hell. It all depends on your actions. It's an equal opportunity. Allah gives an equal opportunity to everyone, no matter what your race is, what your country is, what your language is, who your father is. We all have an equal opportunity in the eyes of Allah Azza wa Jal. Imam Ali alayhi salam has 2 verses of poetry, very beautiful. He says, لَعَمْرُكَ مَا الْإِنسَانُ إِلَّا بِدِينِهِ لَعَمْرُكَ مَا الْإِنسَانُ إِلَّا بِدِينِهِ فَلَا تَتْرُكِ التَّقْوَى اتِّكَالًا عَلَى النَّسَبِ فَقَدْ رَفَعَ الْإِسْلَامُ سَلْمَانَ فَارِسٍ وَقَدْ وَضَعَ الشِّرْكُ الشَّرِيفُ أَبَا لَهَبٍ. Imam Ali alayhi salam, in these beautiful verses of poetry, he says what matters to every human being is his faith, is his religion. So don't abandon piety and righteousness because whom your father is, or who your family is, or who your grandfather is. Even if your grandfather is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, don't say my grandfather is Rasulullah. What matters on the day of judgment is your actions, what you've done, the things that you've done. On the day of judgment, no one will ask you who your father is or your grandfather is. In this life, here, maybe we might get away. My father is this person, my grandfather is that person. Depending on which country you live in, you might be able to get away with certain things because of who your father or grandfather or which family you're in. But on the day of judgment, that doesn't matter. No one will ask you who your family is. They'll ask you, what are your actions? What have you done? فَقَدْ رَفَعَ الْإِسْلَامُ سَلْمَانَ فَارِسٍ. Imam Ali says, look at Islam, how beautiful Islam is. Salman al-Farisi, he came from Persia. No one knew him. Yet because of his faith, look at where Salman reached. Not because of his country, not because of his tongue, not because of his family, but because of his actions, because of his faith. And look at Abu Lahab. Abu Lahab was the uncle of Rasulullah, yet he reached the lowest level. Salman al-Farisi reached the highest level because of his actions, and Abu Lahab reached the lowest level because of his actions, even though he's the uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Thus, it's an equal opportunity, my dear brothers and sisters. In life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us an equal opportunity. He says, come and work. وَقُلْ اعْمَلُوا فَسَيَرَى اللَّهُ عَمَلَكُمْ. And say, work. Start working and do good deeds. You all have equal opportunities. It doesn't matter where you came from and which family you're from. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. When we look at the world of sports, we see that here in the West, they stress on sports because it helps children and youth and young adults stay away from drugs and smoking. And indeed, for many youth, it helps them because if they engage in sports, they concentrate on their bodies, having a healthy body, having healthy lungs, being engaged in sports, most likely you will not want to destroy your body. You will not want to destroy your health. If you care about sports, most likely you care about your body. You care about your health. You care about your physique. You will stay away from things that harm your body and harm yourself, harm you physically and mentally, such as drugs. That is why a lot of parents, they encourage their youth, their children, to participate at school, to participate in exercise, in sports, to go and play games because it keeps them away. However, on a professional level, unfortunately, we see that some athletes do take drugs. There are some athletes that take drugs to enhance their performance on games. There are very well-known athletes that have been known to take drugs. For example, Andre Agassi, the famous Tennessee player, he was known to have been caught to take drugs. Maradona, the famous player for Argentina, was caught taking steroids. These are two of the many athletes that were caught taking drugs. In fact, there were athletes that died because of taking drugs. Thus, what I'd like to say is for our youth that their number one role model in life is a certain athlete. Some youth, if you go into their rooms, you don't see anything but pictures of athletes. Their favorite athletes. On their phone, athletes. On their laptop, the screen, it's a picture of their favorite athlete. If you ask them about that athlete, they know their biography very well. In fact, they can come up here and give an entire lecture on certain athletes. Their name, where do they work, in which team, where did they move, how much they make, and so on and so forth. But you ask these youth, do you know anything about Muslim ibn Aqil? Do you know anything about Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas? Do you know anything about Imam Muhammad al-Jawad? Can some of our youth give a 10-minute talk about Imam Muhammad al-Jawad? No. But you ask them about, all these famous football players and athletes, they'll be able to give you hours of lectures. Why? We tell our youth that what you know about your athletes, know something about your imams as well. If you have so many pictures of these athletes, put some pictures of scholars. Who's more worthy of being emulated and taken as role models? Our scholars and our mujtahideen, those who've sacrificed their life for the sake of Islam, our scholars, our ulama, or these athletes who some of them take drugs, not all of them, but some of them take drugs, and some of them died while taking drugs. Who's more worthy of being emulated and followed? Do you know about the life of these athletes? If you do, maybe you know about the good side. You don't know about the bad side. You don't know how much alcohol they drink. You don't know about the problems in their families. You don't know about the divorce. You don't know about the relationship with their children. Do they have children? Do they even know their children? Do they make time for their children? Did they have depression or not? Some of them even commit suicide. Whether it's athletes or actors or these celebrities. Didn't we just see a couple of months ago a famous actor, Robin Williams, commit suicide? Who would think that Robin Williams, I'm sure most of you know Robin Williams, who would assume that an actor like Robin Williams, who we all admired as children, we liked his movie Peter Pan, he had some nice movies. He brought smiles and laughs and laughter to a lot of people. Who would think that an actor like this, who would make millions of dollars, would commit suicide? This tells you that these actors, what you see on TV, they seem happy, they smile, they ride nice cars, they come to all of these good events, but you don't know what's happening in their homes. You don't know how much depression they have to go through. You don't know if they take drugs or they're alcoholics or they even think about suicide. So who's worthy of being emulated and followed and taken as role models? Athletes or our scholars? Let's think about that. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Among the benefits of sports, and as we said, sports have benefits, they have pros. Sports have pros and they have cons, like everything else. Among the benefits of sports is that it teaches youth team building skills, how to work with a team. You see, in any game, in order to win, the entire team has to participate. One team cannot depend on one person, correct? Like Argentina. Argentina this year depended on one player. They thought they can depend on Messi. Well, Messi goofed up. He couldn't do it. They lost. Some people thought that Argentina will win the World Cup. No, because there was no teamwork. In sports, in games, we are taught that in order to win, you have to work as a team. You can't do it by yourself. You can't think arrogantly that you're the man, you could do it, and you don't need anyone else. No, in order for the team to win, the team has to work together. They have to learn how to cooperate together. You see, this is a life lesson as well. This team building skills that sports teaches us, this helps us in our life. In our life, all aspects of life, we need to learn how to work as a team. At work, in your business, you can't do it by yourself. You have co-workers that you need to work together with. Doctors that are performing a surgery, they have to work as a team. Lawyers that work in a firm, they have to work as a team. A family, in order for a family to be successful, they have to work together. The father, the son, the wife, the son, the daughter, they all have to work together in order to have a successful family. We learn this from sports. Sports teach us how to work as a team in order to score and win. Sports teach us how to build bonds. One of the benefits of sports is that it allows youth to build bonds. I'm sure that most of you have noticed that you're best friends with the friends that you played football with, and soccer with, and basketball with. If you're on a team during high school or college, or you played for another team outside of school, those who you played with are probably your best friends. Why? Because when you play together, you win together, you enjoy those special moments of winning, scoring. These are very special moments. It builds bonds between youth and children and young adults. And these people, they remain friends forever. And we human beings, we're in need of friends. Nothing is more valuable than a good friend that remains with you forever. A friend that sticks by you at good times and at bad times. Today on Twitter, I tweeted that every person is in need of a good friend. Not just to make you laugh and smile when you're upset, but to also make you cry when you make a mistake. Friends are there to correct your mistakes as well. Not just to make you laugh and smile all the time and let you have a good time. No, sometimes a friend lets you have a bad time as well. Don't think if a friend gives you good advice and makes you upset for a couple of moments and corrected your mistake, that this is not a good person or not a good friend. This friend is a good friend. In Iraq, we have a saying. We have Iraqi saying. I always used to hear it from my mom, from my mother. She would say, walk behind a person that makes you cry, not a person that makes you laugh. Meaning what? Don't go with a person that pleases you all the time and flatters you all the time. Go and be friends with a person that corrects your mistakes, that gives you good advice. Thus, every human being is in need of good friends, valuable friends. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Among the benefits of sports is that it helps release energy, especially for children. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given children lots of energy. Some kids are very hyper. They're very energetic, including my own kids. If these children, they don't release their energy outside, in playing games, in playing sports, where are they going to release their energy? At home. They're going to drive their parents crazy. Why? Because they come home from school, they built up energy, they didn't take it outside, they're not engaging in games. Thus, they come home and they drive their parents crazy because they have a bunch of energy. Thus, sports helps them release that energy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them. They go outside, they play, they exercise, they release that energy, they come back home calm and peaceful. There are some parents, instead of letting their children play, they give them iPods or iPads. I'm sure most parents do this. The problem is with these iPads is, number one, it makes our children stupid. Why? Because they're continuously looking at a gadget for 5 hours, 6 hours, instead of reading, instead of studying, instead of doing something useful. They're looking at a screen. Number two, it ruins their eyes. Number three, these iPads, especially with internet on it, with a press of a button, God knows on which site they could end up on. A 5-year-old or 6-year-old child with the access of the internet, he could end up on bad websites. Thus, we're giving shaitan in the hands of our children for 5 hours, 6 hours. Why? Because we don't want them to be naughty at home. Because they're driving us crazy at home, so we give them an iPod for them to be busy. Well, instead, sports could be a way for them to release energy in a positive way, in a good way. Instead of exposing them to shaitan, instead of ruining their eyes, instead of making them dumb, we can have them play sports and keep them away from trouble. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Sports also help reduce stress. According to statistics, sports reduce stress and depression. According to statistics, many youth who engage in sports and exercise, they are less prone to be depressed. Those who engage in exercise and sports, they are less likely to be stressed out. Sports take away depression, and this is one of the benefits of sports. Now we come to as we wrap up our discussion, what does Islam say about sports? Islam, my dear friends, does not ban sports, obviously. It does not say that sports is haram. On the contrary, Islam encourages sports. Islam encourages exercise. We have a hadith that says, teach your children 3 things. 3 things teach them. Number 1, horseback riding. Number 2, swimming. And number 3, sword fighting or throwing arrows, which is it called archery? Archery. 3 things that are recommended: swimming, horseback riding, and archery or sword fighting. Of course, not for violence. Don't think that Islam is doing this to encourage violence and to teach our children violence. No, this is exercise. And we shall mention why. We shall mention why. Out of self-defense. This is one hadith. Another hadith says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُؤْمِنُ الْقَوِيِّ. Allah loves a believer that's strong. Not just spiritually strong. Of course, spiritually strong and physically strong. Allah loves a believer that's physically strong, physically fit. That is fit. In Risalat al-Huquq by Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, he says, وَإِنَّ لِبَدَنِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقًّا. Your body has a right on you. Go and exercise. Don't let your body be weak. Your body has rights. Go and exercise. Be fit. The Quran says, قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Say, walk on earth. The Quran encourages us to walk. This is a form of exercise. وَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا وَكُلُوا مِنْ رَزْقِهِ. And walk in Allah's vast lands and eat from His sustenance. Walk. This is a form of exercise. And the story of Yusuf and Yaqub, the verse that we began with in the beginning of the speech. When the children of Yaqub took Yusuf, They took him for what? They said, we will go, we would like to play sports. قالوا يا أبانا إنا ذهبنا نستبق. We went to race. We were racing. We were exercising. We were playing sports. Yaqub did not tell them this is haram. This is wrong. These are children of prophets. Children of prophets are exercising. They're playing sports. They're racing. Is this something bad? Of course not. Why does Islam encourage sports and exercise? Three reasons. Number one, to stay fit and to stay healthy. When you exercise and when you play sports, you will be more healthy. You will be more fit. You will be able to worship Allah better. Who can worship Allah better? Someone who's tired and his bones hurt him and can barely walk, or someone who's fit, someone who jogs every day, someone who's healthy. Who can worship Allah better? Who can go to Hajj every year and perform Hajj? Those that are old, those that are unhealthy, those who don't exercise, when they go to Hajj, they have a hard time. That is why people that are not fit, not healthy, they have a hard time going to Hajj. While those who are fit and exercise, they enjoy going to Hajj. Because in Hajj there's a lot of physical activity. They will enjoy it. Going for ziyarah, walking during the Arba'een from Najaf to Karbala, which has become a tradition now. Many of followers of Ahl Bayt, they go and walk. Who? You have to be fit. If you are not fit, you cannot engage in any of these acts. Praying Salatul Layl, you have to be fit. You have to be healthy. Otherwise, if you're not fit, if you have to sleep at 10 p.m., you can't stay up, you're not physically fit, you will not be able to pray Salatul Layl. No, fasting. If you are not physically fit, you cannot fast. If you are ill, if you did not take care of your health, if you didn't exercise, you will not be able to fast. Thus, in order to stay healthy and to worship Allah better. This is one. Number two, self-defense. Self-defense. You never know who will attack you. You will never know who will try to kill you or beat you or stab you. Or like maybe sometimes you have an enemy that will attack you personally, and sometimes you have an enemy that will attack your country, like our countries. Aren't our countries attacked every day? In Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Lebanon, our countries are attacked. Out of self-defense, Islam says be healthy, exercise, learn how to fight with swords, learn how to ride horses. And this was an example, riding horses. Today, if we don't ride horses, if it's not a common exercise, let's do the common exercises of today. If today there's no swords, what other things are there? Use it out of self-defense, not to attack others. Don't get me wrong. Not to attack, not to initiate an attack, but out of self-defense. In Iraq, if our youth had exercised and were in shape and were fit, would we have such massacres like at Camp Spiker when 1,700 Shia youth, they were slaughtered and they were beheaded and they were killed? Would we have such a massacre? No, it's because our youth were unfit, unequipped. And when you're unequipped, you lack courage as well. You will lack the courage. But when you're fit, when you're in shape, you also develop the courage to fight your enemy. This is a point that we have to pay attention to. Number three, Islam encourages us to stay fit, to look good for our spouse. Look good for your wife, for your husband. Instead of growing bellies this big, and your wife might ask for a divorce, Islam says remain fit. A wife looks good for her husband, and a husband looks good for his wife. Go and exercise. There's some people that only exercise during the first few years of marriage, but after 10 years, no, everything changes. There's a belly. He starts losing his hair. He doesn't care. They just stop caring. The hips, the shoulders, everything multiplies by 10. Islam says be in shape. If you don't do it for yourself, do it for your spouse. Do it for your wife. Do it for your husband. this increases the intimacy. This will reduce the amount of divorces in our communities. One of the problems, one of the reasons of divorce is there's no intimacy. There's no attraction between the husband and the wife. There is in the first couple of years, but after 10 years, they're not attracted to each other because they stopped caring. Islam says no, exercise, be in shape, look good for your spouse so that the intimacy remains. Unfortunately, we Middle Easterners, we don't have this culture of exercise. We don't. Here in the West, it exists. I remember when we used to live in the United States, I would wake up at 6 in the morning to go to university. I would see our neighbor. He was a 70-year-old man. He would get up and jog in the morning. I was young. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't be in the mood to get up and jog at 6 in the morning. But a 70-year-old man gets up and jogs. Do you see anyone jogging in Iraq? Do you see anyone jogging in Afghanistan at 6 in the morning? Do you see anyone running? No. The only time they run, if they hear about a bomb about to explode, they start running. That's the only time. You don't see them jogging or exercising. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Having said this, my dear brothers and sisters, that Islam encourages exercise, at the same time we have to observe the Islamic laws. Islam says go and exercise, but don't go at a mixed gym. Some say, yes, Sayyid told me I have to go and exercise and there's a nice mixed gym and there's a good opportunity to look at ladies and ladies looking at men, so we have an excuse now. No, exercise, but also at the same time observe Islamic laws. A lot of youth, they go to mixed gyms. Who told you this is allowed to go to a mixed gym? Men and women, they exercise together. Obviously, they're not dressed appropriately. The females are not dressed appropriately, and the men are not dressed appropriately. In fact, I've heard that some youth go to the gym. There are some that go and hook up at the gym. The young ladies, they come with makeup. I don't know why she's coming with, if she's there to exercise, what's the makeup for? And the young men, they go with tank tops to show their muscles. This is not appropriate. Islam says go and exercise, but exercise in the right manner. Thus, going to mixed gyms where young men and women are mixed and they're not dressed properly, this is not allowed, brothers and sisters. This is not allowed. The same thing goes for exercising at school. A lot of people ask us, what should we do at school? Is it allowed, not allowed? I give the same answer. If it's mixed, it's not allowed. For our young sisters, for the young ladies that wish to exercise and jog and go out for a run, you may do so, but observe your hijab. Do not violate your hijab. Respect your hijab. There are some young women that violate their hijab. Their clothing is not appropriate. Why? For the excuse of, I'm going for a jog, I'm going out to run and exercise. No, respect your hijab. Mixed pools. Do I really need to mention anything about mixed pools? I get a lot of questions. Sayyid, what do you say about mixed pools? I don't think I need to even comment about this subject. Obviously, it's haram. Thus, I conclude, my dear brothers and sisters, especially to the youth. I'd like to direct my attention to the youth. That anything, too much of anything is not good. Too much of anything. I see a lot of youth that are obsessed. They're obsessed with sports. Islam says engage in sports and exercise, but don't make it an obsession. There are some that waste all of their time watching sports, one game after another, one game after another. Before you know it, you see that they've destroyed 6 hours, 7 hours watching sports. Or they go and they play. Go and play, but not 6 hours, not 7 hours. Play on the weekends, play on a Sunday. Stay fit, but don't kill your time. I see a lot of youth on social networks. All they do is they tweet about games. Who won, who lost, how much did they score, and they get upset. They put emotions. They even start swearing at the team that lost or the team that won. This is not necessary. This becomes an obsession. This is not right. My advice to my dear brothers and sisters, that don't make sports an obsession. Sports is nice when it's a hobby, when it's during your leisure time. But now when it becomes an obsession, don't make it an obsession. You see, one of the problems in the West is that they teach us about sports to a point that they've made sports an obsession. You know why? Because they wish to distract our youth. In some countries, they wish to distract our youth by letting them play sports, watching sports, tweet about sports, buy jerseys, buy I don't know what, collector's item. They distract our youth. You know, the Olympic Games that were established by the Greeks. You know why? They made the Olympic Games and they made up these games and these sports so that their citizens will be distracted, so that their governments can engage in a lot of oppression. Their governments could do whatever they want, but their citizens are engaged in sports and games. Today the same thing is happening. Our youth, instead of being involved in politics, instead of knowing what's happening across the globe, in Palestine, the aggression against Gaza and against the Palestinian people in Iraq, what Wahhabis and ISIS are doing in Pakistan, what the Taliban are doing, what Saudi Arabia is doing. A lot of our youth, instead of knowing what's happening, a top scholar in Saudi Arabia, Sheikh al-Nimr, Ayatollah al-Nimr, is about to be executed. But our youth are tweeting about games. They're tweeting about their teams and about scores. Instead of knowing what's happening, instead of being active, instead of being politically active, they're obsessed with teams and sports. No, don't make it an obsession. Enjoy your sports, enjoy your games, but don't make it an obsession, my dear brothers and sisters. We have to know what's happening across the world. This is the month of Muharram. This is the month that teaches us we should care about oppression. We should fight oppression, whether it's with our hands or with our tongue or with our hearts. We have to learn about this. This is what we pick up from Muharram. To fight oppression, let's learn from the youth of Karbala, my dear brothers and sisters. Look at the youth of Karbala. Look at how ambitious they are. The youth of Karbala, they didn't have desires. They didn't have certain desires. They did. But nevertheless, they fought. They fought bravely with Imam Hossein alayhi salam. Yesterday, Al-Qasim would ask, on the night of Ashura, Al-Qasim would ask his uncle Imam Hussein, will I be among the martyred on the day of Ashura? Will I also be killed? When Imam Hussein told his companions that you will all be martyred, Al-Qasim asked, will I also be among the dead? Imam Hussein wanted to test his maturity. He wanted to test his intellectual level. He told him, وَكَيْفَ الْمَوْتُ عُنْدَكْ يَا بُنَيْ? And how do you view death? He said, وَاللَّهِ يَا عَنْ وَاللَّهِ يَا عَنْ فِي نُصْرَتِكَ أَحْلَى مِنَ الْعَسَلِ. My uncle, by God, I swear that if death, if it's to support you, then it's sweeter than honey. This was Al-Qasim. And today we have Ali al-Akbar. Today in some parts of the world, in Iraq and in the Middle East, in the Gulf countries, they commemorate Ali al-Akbar, the eldest son of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. أشبه الناس خلقا وخلقا ومنطقا برسوله. The most person who resembles his grandfather Rasulullah in his looks and his akhlaq and his demeanor. Ali al-Akbar came to Imam Hussein alayhi salam asking for permission to enter the battlefield. Imam Hussein did not say no to him. If he were to say no to everyone else, he had said no to everyone else except Ali al-Akbar, because this is his son. He wanted him to join the battle. This revolution, it started with the Imam, and the Imam did not say no. All he did was he raised his head to the sky and he said, Allahumma shhad ala ha'ula'i al-qawm faqad baraza ilayhim غلام أشبه الناس خلقا وخلقا ومنطقا برسولك وكنا إذا اشتقنا إلى نبيك نظرنا إلى وجه هذا الغلام اللهم امنعهم بركات الأرض ومزقهم تمزيقا واجعلهم طرائق قددا فقد دعونا لينصرونا فغدوا علينا يقاتلونا. Oh Allah, bear witness that the youth who is most closest to your prophet and his demeanor and his akhlaq and his speech has come out to fight them. Oh Allah, forbid them from the blessings of this earth, and destroy them and divide them, for they have called us to support us, but they have turned against us, and now they fight us. Ali al-Akbar entered the battlefield. He began to fight. Imam al-Hussein was standing. He was watching. Layla comes out of the tent. Layla, the mother of Ali al-Akbar, she wasn't looking at the battle. She was only looking at the face of her husband, Imam Hussein, her Imam Hussein. She saw Imam Hussein. All of a sudden, his face became pale. She told him, Sayyidi, my master, has anything bad happened to my son Ali al-Akbar? He said, no, but a fierce champion has come out to fight him. Oh, Layla, go to your tent and pray for him. Layla came to her tent. She put off her abaya, she faced the Qibla, and she began to pray for Ali al-Akbar. Ilahi bighurabati Abi Abdullah, Ilahi bi'atashi Abi Abdullah, Ya Radd Yusuf ila Ya'qub, رد إلي ولدي علي. Oh Allah, I ask you by the sake of Hussein, I ask you by the sake of the thirst of Hussein, oh you who returned Yusuf to his father Ya'qub, return to me my son Ali alive. Moments later, Ali al-Akbar returned back to the camp. He returned to his father. Abi al-Atash qad qatalani, wa thiql al-hadid qad ajhadani. My dear father, thirst is killing me. The heaviness of this armor is killing me. It's wearing me out. Imam Hussein tells him, my son, go back to the battle. Go back and fight. But before you go say your farewell to your mother, Layla. She's waiting for you. Ali al-Akbar returns back to the battle. They surround him from all sides. One of the enemy soldiers hits him with a strike on his head. Ali al-Akbar bends down. He begins to bleed. The blood covers the eyes of the horse. Instead of taking him back to his father, he takes him to the enemy soldiers. They surround him from every side. They begin to cut him into pieces. Ali al-Akbar shouts, Abata alayka minni salam, فهذا جدي قد سقاني شربة لا أظمأ بعدها أبدا. Imam Hussein rushes to him. He sees Ali al-Akbar cut into pieces. This is his son. Imam Hussein holds him, yet he was still not comfortable. He sat next to him. He still wasn't comfortable. His heart was burning out of sadness. Imam Hussein finally puts his cheek on the cheeks of Ali al-Akbar. Waladi Ali ala dunya ba'daka al-afa. My son Ali, life is not worth living after you. He saw Ali al-Akbar. Imam Hussein noticed something about Ali al-Akbar. He saw that Ali al-Akbar smiled. He first smiled and then he started to cry. Imam Hussein asked his son Ali al-Akbar, why did you smile and why did you cry? He said, as for my smile, I saw my grandfather Rasulullah sitting next to me, about to take me to paradise. And then when I cried, you know why I cried? I saw my grandmother Fatima sitting and beating her head, beating her face. When Ali al-Akbar passed away, Imam Hussein could not carry him back to the camp. He called the youth to come and help him carry Ali al-Akbar back to the camp. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته، ولا هما إلا فرجته، ولا عيبا إلا سترته، ولا خوفا إلا آمنته، ولا رزقا إلا بسطته، ولا شملا إلا جمعته، ولا مرضا إلا شفيته، ولا غائبا إلا حفظته وأدنيته، ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة لك فيها رضا ولنا فيها صلاح إلا قضيتها ويسرتها يا أرحم الراحمين. ولأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والعلماء والشهداء نقرأ سورة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.